Today's guest is Ross Blum, President and COO of Skyline Robotics. The conversation really was an interesting one because we got to dive into the differences between being a founder and building your own team and then heading that startup up against all the obstacles you face versus what happened in the instance of Skyline Robotics for Ross, which was he was invited by the founders to lead this team that was already built and what that dynamic looked like and how different it was and what he did about it. We also got a chance to cover the cultural differences that need to be respected and understood when operating a company that has the potential to be global, like Skyline Robotics does. Of course, we covered the industry as a whole, in particular, not only with robotics, but with the particular slant that Skyline Robotics has with their OZMO product for window cleaning, or better known as urban maintenance, and what that looks like with the workforce, the demographics, and how they currently look, helping them upskill as technologies begin to innovate and disrupt the industry as a whole. And also, generally speaking, we got a chance to dive into what it looks like to be part of a startup and how Ross sees it working out. It's truly one of those situations where the conversation just flowed and we got a chance to really just talk about startups, what it's like, raising capital, being a leader, moving things forward, where he has his sights set for the next city or what have you, and also where you can get a hold of him. So truly, it's something you're going to want to know more about. I hope that's intrigued you because it was definitely a conversation I thoroughly enjoyed having. Without further ado, Ross Blum. As you know, we get down and dirty here with talking to entrepreneurs about how they're innovating, about what they're doing differently, anything that can give you the edge, because the startup life is not easy. So with that said, today we have Ross Blum with us. Ross, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, Phillip. Thank you so much for having me here on the show. Excited to be here and, looking forward to a great conversation.
Same, very much the same. It's not every day we get to talk to somebody working in robotics because it is a relatively fresh field, right? So before we dive headfirst into there, from what I've learned so far, you're in NYC and there's a lot of skyscrapers. I got to know, did this idea come to you sort of in that fashion where you're walking around and you're like, I'm going to innovate something, I'm going to break something, I'm going to disrupt something, and then you look up and you see the skyscrapers and you're like, wait a minute, did it go like that or was it a little more complex?
I wish I could take that much credit for it. I mean, I did grow up here in New York City, so like I'm used to these like massive buildings surrounding me. But my journey to Skyline, I actually didn't found the company. It was a little more complex of a journey than that. So the company had actually been founded by two Israeli entrepreneurs in 2017. But I got brought in along with a new CEO in December of 2020, really to take what was, a very sort of nascent company, certainly at the time, and figure out how to go to market. What's the right team to build? What's the right business model to go and execute? And how do we actually gain, adoption? And so, being surrounded by these big buildings and getting to see so many window cleaning and facade sort of operations happen throughout my life, it did feel like I should have thought of this candidly, but I can't take the credit, for doing that. But we've been given, a great opportunity to come here and join what was started by a few gentlemen out in Israel, and really take it to its next levels. And that's what we've been doing for coming up on 3 years now. Is really figuring out, how to bring this type of technology to market. Not just how do you create it, what type of team you need, but how do you actually get an industry to change? Really to adjust to an evolution, and how to actually complete an operation. Because at the end of the day, human beings are human beings, and we get caught in these cycles of being stagnant, not wanting to change, because change sometimes is scary. Change can be exciting, don't get me wrong, but change is scary. Change means different responsibilities, different operating procedures, different paths to follow, or new ideas to pursue. And sometimes you engage with industries that candidly don't want to change. Now, I don't feel that way about the industry that we're necessarily working in, and I think that we're seeing the adoption and the desire, to create change and to create an evolution, to bring the efficiency and to bring data really to the forefront of what's happening. Because you have to think about that these buildings that I get to be surrounded by every single day, these are $1 billion+ assets. At the end of the day, it is not cheap to go and build a skyscraper, especially here in the United States, and certainly not here in New York City as a whole. So when you're putting up these assets that have those $1 billion+ valuations, it really does make you start to think like, okay, like, is there something else? Is there something new I should be thinking about? And we're engaging with the community all the way through the value chain, not just the developers and the property managers, the service providers, the facade consultants, architects, general contractors. And we're really excited for what's happening through this process. But we're educating, we stay humble, and we stay hungry each and every day.
That's it, man. That's it. There's so many things we can talk about just based on what you just shared. Number one, the difference between being a founder and launching your own company, a startup, and doing that as opposed to coming in where some founders were already there and bringing you in, and what that dynamic is like, right? We've got that whole conversation right there waiting, right? Then we've got the idea of an industry like urban maintenance and what that looks like, right? And not only working with the workforce that is so used to that, and I don't know how you can ever get used to being elevated that high in the sky, you know what I mean? But improving the safety measures there, and really changing the industry and finding out how that transition between that workforce is looking. And I could go on with the number of threads I could pull on. I actually really would love to hear, first off, your own view of it, because I know this isn't your first go around in the business world. So coming in and not being the initial founder, but coming in and really building and developing that go-to-market strategy, what are the dynamics like, and what have you learned about that?
Candidly, there's blessings and curses to every situation, right? I got to come into a situation where maybe we had learned some things that weren't going to work, right? Maybe some things had been tried already. But at the end of the day, getting to come into what I viewed as a really good opportunity, and Skyline seemed like a really good opportunity to me for two key reasons. Because there's a lot of startups out there that create really, really cool technology, candidly, at the end of the day. But does that technology always have a purpose and a business application and a use case that people really want to like adopt is a different question. But window cleaning happens really, really regularly. It had a built-in sort of revenue model. People pay for it consistently. You're not making a new line item in someone's budget to need to go and complete this task. So that's like one thing, because getting people to pay for something they're not paying for today sometimes is a bigger hurdle, than just trying to fit into, a line item that does exist on a building's operating budget. The other piece of the puzzle is, again, startups create amazing, amazing things, but very few startups really have a global opportunity. So they might have regional opportunities, they might have continental opportunities, but very few companies really have global opportunities, especially from a very early stage of the company itself. So given that there's certainly no technological reason why our system, OZMO, working in Tel Aviv versus New York versus London or Sydney, Australia, or Hong Kong, right? There's no technical limitation to the technology that precludes it from working in any single market. Yes, we'll have to go through some localization, manuals, the user interface and things like that. Might need some like language adjustments, certainly as we go. But Skyline, I felt really had like a built-in revenue model because it's something that people paid for, and really had a global opportunity with its technology as well. And so those were sort of like the two key pieces of the puzzle for me personally to build conviction in coming into the company to begin with. But coming in and trying to take hold of candidly a team I didn't know, a team that I hadn't built. Working, with robotics, which was a first for me. I came from startups that develop mobile and web applications. At the end of the day, very different development processes associated, with these different types of products. But candidly, wherever I've worked, I've had the opportunity to learn and grow. I've had the opportunity not just to learn and grow personally and understand what works for me, what has worked best for me in previous companies, and really trying to initiate new initiatives or new strategic plans and things of that nature. But it's also given me an opportunity to learn and grow about different types of technology and different types of engineers that build different types of technology. And so if you can really, through the course of your experiences in life, begin to understand what it's like to sit in that other person's shoes, no matter what type of shoes that person might be wearing at the time, you can start to build connections really, really quickly. And so the first key piece of the puzzle in coming into a new situation was just ingraining myself and showing my dedication to what we're doing, right? I hadn't been there the longest. It was my first day, but I was going to go outwork every single person to go show them that how dedicated I am to the process. But just working hard isn't good enough, right? You also have to have good ideas. Those ideas need to actually work. You have to build credibility, with a new group of people, and you have to understand what really makes them tick. How do they want to improve? How do they want to get better? And how can this platform of a company that you're building enhance not just who they are today, but what their ambitions are going forward? So really, to me, like, yes, technology companies develop technology, but we're a people business, right? The people behind the technology are much more critical to getting our technology to where we need to go than just hoping it's going to develop itself, candidly, at the end of the day. So my approach in coming into a new situation was show my desire, show my work ethic, be the hardest worker in the room, first one in, last one out, any single day. And just nothing's ever good enough until I've proven myself to the team.
Yeah, man. No, I really appreciate you going all in on that answer. That was definitely not anything other than top-notch answer to a question like that, because it was broad, but you really gave that insight we were looking for, especially in terms of being able to step into a team that you didn't build, which is probably the hardest thing for most founders, because they really like to have their own people, and you coming in from as an outside, but also being expected to be the leader. That's probably the biggest hurdle to overcome. Second only to, I think, funding, because now we're talking about a global thing, right? So how does that work? Because I've personally only worked with startups that are like focused in one area and likely in the US. And do you have to grab funding from multiple countries when expanding, or can it all come from one? And what are the differences you've seen, given that you've been in the startup world, between the US and pretty much anywhere else, or places like
Yeah,
Israel,
yeah, 100%. And it's a great question. I mean, candidly, anyone that invests in a company is your ally, right? So my job is to create the best possible allies wherever those people are that are going to help me get the furthest. Now, some people do have a more strategic lens, to an investment, right? We've had, real estate developers invest in Skyline Robotics. Maybe they haven't invested the largest amount of anyone who's invested, but they bring a lot of different types of value and can provide, a lot of different insights and opportunities, for a company like ours. I think that it is smart, generally speaking, that if you're trying to approach a new market, that you have to create some allies in some way, shape, or form. Does that need to be in the form of an investment, sort of ally? No, it doesn't need to be there, but you're going to need to be able to get to the ground truth on many different types of situations. And being an outsider to any marketplace on the planet makes that really, really tough. If you can create, relationships, whether it's strategic partnerships, advisors from specific regions who might be very well connected in an area, or certainly taking an investment from a very credible investor in a market, you can sort of give yourself enough options in figuring out what that ground truth is. Because sometimes, there's different laws, places, there's different ways of doing business. There's different ways to introduce yourself, just like the nuances culturally from one market to the next can make or break you. And if you're not conscious of understanding how people in a given marketplace not just want to work, but just really like how the world works there, you're setting yourself up for failure, candidly, at the end of the day. So technology is great because it scales. And yes, we want to maintain our business model in the same way on a global scale. But at the end of the day, the nuance of doing business in different geographies and locations changes. And I had an opportunity at my previous company to do business with some international, markets, whether it was the Japanese marketplace, European markets. We ended up selling the company to a company based out of Hong Kong. I really got some exposure to how different people from around the globe want to operate and do operate, because that's culturally how they approach situations, based on where their location is. Some markets, it's incredibly important to be very hands-on, be boots on the ground, be with them, build the relationship there. Other markets, you don't have to be, boots on the ground, like as much, but you do need to understand their cultural norms, how they want to operate, and how to grow a business successfully in their market. So, there's no one size fits all solution, right? There can be humans, are really profound and interesting in many different ways. And there's no two of us that are really alike. So there are cultural norms to understand, but at the end of the day, like I said, we're in the people business. We do business with people. Yes, they represent organizations, but you have to really build those relationships really, really strongly, with confidence. And candidly, from my view of the world, as a startup, until we've made it to some, let's say, extreme level of success, we're the ones that have to prove it to the world. It's us against the world. We have to respect everybody. We have to fit into how everyone else wants to work. And yeah, we got to bring innovation, and the technology is the foundation of why we even get to speak to any of these people. Like, don't get me wrong there. But, it's critical to understand, how to put yourself in other people's shoes, understand what makes them tick, how they need to operate, and, really try to find the path, because it's a waste of everyone's time to try to put a square peg in a round hole. And the quicker you can learn, potentially with those allies, again, on the investment or advisory or strategic partnership front, you can get much quicker, much more quickly.
Yeah, man. No, this is key. And I want to ask, is there anything you do when you first land in a new market, like by default, whether it's reaching out to a certain type of person where you can sort of learn those cultural quirks as soon as possible? Is there anything you've picked up along the way, or is it really just gut instinct the whole way and just that gritty, like every other entrepreneur?
Yeah. I mean, look, you do have to rely on your gut, right? And your gut's not always going to be right, but you can always develop what you think is rational, right? Even without knowing someone from a given market, you can do your own research. Google is a really powerful tool, and YouTube as a companion can give you insights, certainly into, many different things. So at a baseline, you have to be willing to, engage, learn, and sort of like improve yourself. But no, is there like a straight line path to what works in one market will work for every other market? I would tell you certainly no. And I think that there's plenty of cases, whether you want to look at Uber and their successes in certain markets versus others, right? Just go to market sometimes works better in other markets, in some markets rather than others. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that you can't build a successful business. You just got to figure out what actually makes that market tick and what makes the people tick in that market.
Right on. Yeah, there's no getting around the work.
Yeah, I wish, man. I mean, I wish I slept more, but like at the end of the day, if you're not, if you're not willing to put the hours in, you shouldn't be in a startup.
Now, look, one of the awesome things about being a disruptive technology is that you are by default impact driven, right? That's just what you do. Now, looking at the workforce, how is Skyline looked at its current default state, which is coming into a workforce that has people who probably been doing this their whole lives, and whatever that looks like, and what's going to happen to them, or how they're involved with this transition? Has that been part of the strategy, or is it that there is a lack of that because nobody wants to be elevated that high anymore, and so this technologies actually couldn't have come at a better time?
So I think it's a mixture of these things, but like first and foremost, I gotta say I've had the privilege to be out with teams in the field in New York City what those guys and women do every single day, going 1,000 feet up in the air, doing manual labor. It can be 40 degrees outside. It can be 120 degrees outside. And they got to put the work in, either way, because the buildings expect their windows clean, candidly. So like those guys are like superheroes, to me. Like I personally couldn't do it. I've got a fear of heights, but like the people that have carried the industry to where it is today, those people are superheroes, and they deserve a lot of credit and recognition for the work that they do. Our goal is to create a collaborative sort of work environment. Like, yes, we want to put robots on the side of the building, but we still need to maintain someone on the rooftop, both for compliance and regulatory reasons. That person that's on the rooftop, should continue to be employed by their same employer that they have been. Now we want to retrain, upskill, and get those people paid more per hour. But the reality of the U.S. window cleaner demographics are that 76% of window cleaners are above the age of 40, and
Wow.
only 9% are between the ages of 20 and 30. And if you think about, what used to be like a generational job, like my grandfather was a window cleaner, my dad was a window cleaner, I became, like a window cleaner. Well, in the last 20 to 30 years, the educational and vocational diversity that's accessible or available to the general population has shifted dramatically. And maybe it's because of companies, not specifically Skyline Robotics, but startups everywhere. We've given people the opportunity to pursue jobs that they're actually passionate about. If you want to say you're passionate about some particular industry or some type of innovation, I guarantee you there's a startup out there that's working, on that particular industry or that particular, type of innovation at the end of the day. And that's a type of job opportunity set that wasn't available 30 years ago, 40 years ago, right? So startups are incredible. We create innovation. We don't trust the status quo, as the right way to do things. And creating change isn't always easy, but we're mission driven to create that change. So we want to maintain, the employees that work in the workforce today, but upskill, retrain, and get them paid a higher hourly rate, a wage, for becoming a robotic operator rather than just a traditional window cleaner. Now, the realities of the world are that there's not every building on the planet is going to be suitable for OZMO, or candidly for anyone else that ever comes along. There's tons of complexity that can exist within a building. So those people who are in the current workforce, we certainly feel will still have plenty of opportunities to go over the side of the building if that's something that they're really looking for. But if they want to get paid a little bit more, stand comfortably on a rooftop, watch a robotic system operate and clean some windows, we think that there's a good mixture that's going to allow the industry to continue and grow candidly from here.
Man, this is important stuff. This is important stuff, especially when you look at the demographics and say, well, most of them are near retirement age, really. Like they're pretty much close there, and there aren't that many young people coming in. So it is actually rather timely that OZMO and technologies like this are coming in. And that's really good to hear. It is an interesting problem to have in an industry when you're looking at upskilling people, especially when things have been done a certain way for so long. How much of what you do actually is focused on education as opposed to simply because it's not just education of the workforce, right? It's also education of the clientele who are going to be adding this on. Like you said, there's the benefit of not being a new line item. Nonetheless, it's robotics and people need to learn about it. So how much do you invest yourself in like education and understanding how to present it better and building those metaphors to connect those dots for people?
Yeah, I don't know when my job will ever be done on education, because in every market that you go to, like the developers or the real estate asset owners that we have here in New York are different than Chicago, which are different than California, which are different than London, which are different than Brussels, Germany, which are different than Sydney, Australia. Like there's not many developers that really have a global scale. So when we're going to continue to have to introduce our technology, educate people. Yes, I think that some of the deployment cycles will become shorter and shorter, because as we get more and more notoriety and more distribution and everything like that, there'll be, let's say, some form of embedded trust, that's built into what we're doing already. But at the end of the day, the people that do work in this industry, and now I'm not just talking about the guys that go out into the field, but the facade access consultants, the facade access engineers, the architects, who design these operations as part of building, a new structure. There's always going to be need to keep in tune with them, because it's critical for us to maintain levels of trust. And part of that trust is being open and transparent with the industry. Hey, this is where we are today. This is where we'll be in 6 months. This is where we'll be in 18 months. And we have to deliver, on those milestones to continue to get recommendations, into new development projects and otherwise. So I think that, I hope my job becomes less about education as I get to grow a team, a little bit further. But at the end of the day, technology can be really powerful, but technology companies sometimes are misguided in just wanting to believe that the industry will change because they exist. No, I think that we have to operate differently personally at Skyline Robotics. We have to be humble. We have to go prove to everyone. We have to take crap from people sometimes and just accept that that's the way the world is. They're the ones that are important and we're the ones that are less important. Yes, in the back of our minds, we're like, well, we're creating really powerful technology that you could never envision, creating yourself. But candidly, we need to accept where we belong, where we sit in the landscape today. And as we grow, yes, I don't believe that we should ever be arrogant, in terms of what we do or what we say, like as a company. But, the confidence level that we can begin to portray, evolves with the growth of the company. So we need to stay cognizant of who we are, where we are, what we need to get done, stay laser focused, get our butts going on execution of everything we want to accomplish. And, if we do that enough times, the little wins turn into bigger wins, and the bigger wins turn even into bigger wins from there. So we just got to, keep that snowball, going down the hill, keep gaining momentum, and keep pushing ourselves to create change.
Now, before we begin to close things out, I am curious, when someone is still in the need to see to believe, do you actually offer demo as a tech and like tell people, hey, look, we'll demonstrate on your build and show you just how much more efficient or whatever it is?
So we're not opposed, but at the end of the day, we have business already. So we have to understand the pros and cons of every situation, right? There can be a justified situation that does say, well, it is totally worth Skyline expending 30,000, 50,000, whatever it is, wherever it is, right? There are justifications, that can be easily created for business decisions. But at the end of the day, we want to do less and less of that over time, just like everyone in the world wants to do less and less of that over time. But we need to really stay in tune, with who we are and what we're doing, and what our strategic priorities are, and how those initiatives align with those strategic priorities. So, if we're behind schedule on something and an opportunity comes in front of us, but we have to do something that we don't want to do, we'll consider it, right? We're business people at the end of the day. And if we have enough conviction in what we tell the team, what we tell ourselves that we're out there trying to accomplish, and we need to sort of like suck it up, a little bit further to make it happen, like we're not dumb. We'll make that decision. But at the same time, I don't believe that we're close to being done to just convincing people they should transition. This is going to be, a multi-year effort, to really get to that point in time where everyone's just comfortable, and they don't need to see it to believe it. But, at the end of the day, it's all subjective, right? Everyone's going to have different markers in their mind of what's enough. What have you done enough of that makes me comfortable? And building to building, that answer could change. of what is enough. So we can't get caught in that cycle of saying, well, one person told us this, so if we do that, we're good everywhere, right? No, like we need to stay, focused on what we're trying to accomplish. Our plans as a company align with what we believe are the key trigger points to what we want to unlock, and from there, it's execution. We've got in a really, really incredible team. When we came in, it was a team of 8. We got 31 full-time employees now, a little less than 3 years, into this. The team is not just incredible and incredibly smart and incredibly hardworking, but they believe that we are going to go change the world. And I believe that we are going to go change the world and how this world operates in the world of facade access. We have this opportunity. We're building all the proof points necessary to not just prove to ourselves, but to present to the real estate industry, present to investors, present to whatever consultants might be, thrown in our direction. We know what we need to do. We're going to stay humble and hungry each and every day, put our heads down, work hard, and just execute as a family.
I love that. There's this idea of there's a clear before and after Skyline Robotics and the OZMO product hit the store, hit the landscape, right? There's a clear before and after in the way the world looks, and the entire team is aligned on that vision. That couldn't be more exciting now that you've scaled up to 31, and I know that's not the end of it. So this is just the beginning. So as we begin to close out, right, is there anything the listeners should know about new cities you've set your sights on, or what website should they go visit you on?
Sure. Well, our website is www.skylinerobotics.com. I will say we don't do a tremendous job of updating our
You're busy with robotics, right.
each and every day. So, we do update the news section as there are articles or podcasts that do come out. So, check out the news section to come see, this podcast again, now that you're already watching it. We're pretty active on LinkedIn. We think that that's the right sort of like B2B, network for us, because that's the type of business, that we are, candidly, at the end of the day. And in terms of where we're headed, I mean, here's what I'll say. In calendar year 2023, we have averaged 1.65 inbound inquiries through our website every single day. In calendar year 2022, we averaged 1.06 inbound inquiries per day. In calendar year 2021, we averaged 0.65 inbound inquiries per day. So the world is paying attention more and more to what we're doing. Our job in analyzing the opportunities is not just understanding how many buildings are in a given place, what a labor rate might be in a given market, but really, can we find that right partner? Can we find that right ally that we're going to put our trust in, and they're going to put their trust in us to come and deliver on the other side? Choosing the wrong partner, not vetting each other appropriately, in determining what makes sense for your business, mutually, can be a big, a landmine, in many ways. These are big decisions for an early stage company. I couldn't be happier with our partner in New York, the platinum, palladium, titanium families of companies. They not just see and understand the value that we bring to the marketplace, but they want to be a part of it. They want to see their business grow. They have their own aspirations of where their business can go from here with a partnership with Skyline Robotics. To understand and to dig in, with someone and really see that you have a common view of the future and what's going to be out there and what problems are going to exist is more critical than signing more deals more quickly. I'd rather have the right partners in the right places that I have full faith and trust in, and have full faith and trust in what we work on together, than be in 10 markets, at the same time. I would ask your listeners to think about this question. Ask yourselves, can you name 10 successful robotics companies that exist. Like, yes, you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, robotics is a relatively new industry, but robots have existed for 50, 60 years. Like, what 10 companies can your listeners name? Now, there's a number of them out there that have been really, really successful. And we went and studied what it takes to be a successful robotics company. And we think this level of focus and execution and finding the right partners is the key first step in getting this business off the ground, rather than trying to take advantage of those 1.65 inbound inquiries per day that are coming at us from everywhere on the planet.
Man, this is beautiful. Thank you so much. I mean, the way you went in on every answer is exactly what we needed for this show. So, Ross, thank you for being candid, for being honest, and for just leaving it all out there on the field, as they say. With that said, again, everyone is invited to check out the website, but if you can go on LinkedIn and look up Skyline Robotics and connect with Ross, it's probably going to be more likely you'll have an engagement there, since that is the attention span centerfold. So with that said, man, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Same.